Cameron D. Manning, joining you live from Los Angeles, California. Hello, 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 hello. Hello in Hanoi. Hello in Oman. Hello in Barbados. Hello in the Netherlands. Hello in Topeka, Kansas. Hello to those of you in Sacramento, those in San Jose, California, those in Dallas, Texas, those tuning in my hometown in Atlanta, Georgia. You know that I'm Atlanta born, Atlanta bred. When I die, I'll be Atlanta dead. All of you listening here locally in Los Angeles, I am glad to be here. I hope you caught me this morning on KPFK radio, I think it is, or KFPK. Um, I was on the show called Think Outside the Cage. I was on with host Jerry Silva, a great woman who has been involved in the struggle to demolish and dismantle the criminal justice system as it is for years now. You could just Google her name, Geri, last name Silv, as in Valentine A, and you'll see her show. Again, it's either KFPK or KPFK. And the great thing about that show is in a couple of days it is archived, and you can actually go to kfpk.org, or it could be kpfk.org. It's Pacifica Radio. I should look it up while I'm talking. Um, and you can, they archive their shows, and you can look for Think Outside the Cage, and you can actually listen to the interview that she did with me this morning. I thank God for her. I thank God for access. I am just blessed that someone would be interested in anything that I have to say, and I hope that I represented KFPK Radio, the issues, in a manner that might make a difference, and that might have broken it down in ways that perhaps people have not heard it thus far. And I hope that was something unique about the presentation and about what we were able to say today. I think it's KFPK. I'm trying to Google it but it's difficult to do while I'm doing a podcast. KP as in Paul, FK, or KFPK, and it is Pacifica Radio. It is public broadcast station, and the host is Jerry, Geri Silva, Silv as in Valentine A. I was on this morning from 8:30 until 9, and we talked about this criminal justice system. Now, Jerry and I, to be fair, disagree on a lot of issues. But she is a great lady. She's energetic. She's one of the most passionate persons I have ever met when it comes to criminal justice system and the egregious horrors of the prison system in America. She is there. And I love her. And again, I so respect the work that she does. And I so respect the fact that and I'm so blessed by the fact that she would decide to put me on her show and allow me to address her listeners across this city, across this country, and across the world. That was an honor. And from my heart, if she's listening or anyone affiliated with her show, Ricky, the soundboard guy who did a tremendous job, just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. Now, generally speaking, I think that one of the difficulties I've always had with organizations such as Critical Resistance, and again, not difficulties with the organization, because Critical Resistance is a great organization with great people. I think I've always had a problem with the premise of abolishing prisons altogether. I mean, I'm a very pragmatic man, and I always want to face a situation practically. And I know that we're never going to abolish prisons. And I also know that we probably don't need to abolish all prisons. I think where I get in trouble with the abolitionist movement people is when I say that, there are guys who need to be in prison. There are guys who need to be in prison and don't need to get out. I'm sorry if that makes me sound hypocritical or what have you. I'm sorry if that makes me sound whatever. But if you rape, murder, and name 5 or 10 people, I just don't see you ever coming out of prison. I mean, I don't. And I met some guys in prison who should not be there. I met some guys who never should have gone there in the first place. I met some guys who were indeed, definitely, wrongly convicted. I also met some guys who were rightly convicted but got too much time for the crime, who should be there but not for as long as they are going to be there. Okay? But I also met some guys who should never see the light of day. They should not get out. I met some guys that if I were to see them on the streets myself, I would call 911. Okay? And so that's what gets me in trouble with some of the abolitionist minded people. We just can't agree on that. And we never will agree on that. But I will agree to work with them, work for them, assist them, aid them, abet them in any way that I can on the issues that we do agree on, which are 90% of them. And as I said, Critical Resistance proved to be a great organization to me. They actually helped me while I was in jail. And so I love them and I salute them and I honor them. And Jerry Silver is not associated with Critical Resistance. I just mentioned them in the same breath because of the goal to abolish prisons. I think where else Jerry and I disagree is on how great America is. I always say, and I believe in my heart of hearts, that America is the greatest country on the face of the planet. I believe that America still has some racist. I believe that America still has some things to get right. So far as the promissory note that Dr. King talked about, which was given to us. I mean, we never got the 40 acres, we never got the mule. Some bad things have happened to African Americans in this country, to Hispanics, to brown people, to Indians, and especially and also to poor white people. And there's some things going on now that should not be going on. And we still have two nations that are separated by money. And we have to work on that religiously. I blame them for where we are, but I blame us for where we're going. Okay? And so, but at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, it's still the greatest country on earth. You can have the American dream here. You really can. And there's some things that need to be corrected. And I don't think you're ever going to find a perfect country. I don't think you're ever going to find a country where that gets everything right. This country does not get it all right, but it gets a heck of a lot of things right. And so far as poverty is concerned, and the two nations which are divided, which sometimes seem to be more divisive, and I'm not talking about race right now. I think we've come a long way on race. And I know anytime we go start bragging about race and how far we've come, someone else will show you a Klansman, or show you someone who hates all black people, or show you some white guy yelling out the N-word or what have you. You're always going to be able to find that. Always. Always. There are some people who have shocked me who will yell out the N-word. Folk I was with and knew well in prison. People who were very, very close to me, who didn't look like me, who promised not to have a racist bone in their body, some of whom their mothers date black men. And yet I've heard them recently yell out the N-word because they're married with a black man. So, you'll always be able to have somebody that you can point to prove your point that it's still a racist country. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the financial divisiveness in this country and the fact that we need to get pull more people out of poverty. And Ambassador Andrew Young, my dear friend and mentor, former mayor of Atlanta, Reverend Andrew Young, will be quick to tell you and confess to you and admit to you that one of the things that the civil rights movement could have and should have, in his words, done better was getting people out of poverty, setting up the infrastructure that will pull African Americans and poor whites and Hispanics, etc., out of poverty. And so, in some sense, they had their work cut out for them. And Lord, I applaud them for what they did. They did a tremendous job. My former mentor and my dear, dear friend, Reverend Hosea Williams, Andrew Young, Martin Luther King Jr., C.T. Vivian, Jesse Jackson, all of whom I've met with the exception of Dr. King. I was gone. I mean, I was not born when he was assassinated. But all of these guys, they did so much, and names that we will never know. Fannie Lou Hamer. I could go on and on. Names that didn't make the headlines. People really did a tremendous amount of work to help black people in this country and to help minorities in this country. But it is as if, and that shouldn't be a but. That's that, button that with an exclamation point. And it's like we could not ride the front of the bus back then, and they went through hell and high water to get us to the front of the bus. But now a lot of us don't have the money to ride the bus. It's like we could not sit at the lunch counter in those days, and they kicked the doors open so that we could not be disallowed because of race. But now we have to exclude ourselves because we don't have the money to get inside the place that we have the right to get inside of. And so the civil rights movement didn't tackle and didn't address poverty as successfully as we would have hoped they would have. But they did so many other things that were great. And that's why Dr. King had the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. And to his credit, he died fighting for poor people. I mean, he was in Memphis, Tennessee, as you might remember, standing up for sanitation workers. And so what I'm really getting at is where we are now is our leaders need to come together, and we need to figure out a way to get people out of poverty. And the problem with that is a lot of people who are out of poverty don't give a darn. I got mine, you get yours. If I'm driving a Jaguar and living in a $600,000-$700,000 house, and I'm making six figures and making money hand over fist, I'll pray for you, and I might give you a couple of dollars when you wash my window at the traffic light. But to get me to go out of my way to try to help pull you out of poverty, in my opinion, is asking me too much. That's the mentality of most of the bourgeoisie, upper echelon black folks I know in this country right now. And that needs to change also. Preachers need to preach about it. Teachers need to teach about it. I said something on the show with Jerry Silver this morning. If my counselor buddy is listening from the prison system, and I've got several counselor buddies, but I have one that I talked to on yesterday. What prison she or he works in, what color she or he might be, is irrelevant. But I talked to them on the phone telephonically yesterday. That is absolutely, to be quite frank with you, not against the rules, to be honest. But anyway, I said something on the show that I should not have said, or that I really don't. I think I embellished the point in order to try to be hardcore, whatever you want to call it. I said that you could not be a Christian and be a correctional officer. That's simply not true. Period. And I was mistaken. Shouldn't have said that. I was wrong. I said that you could not be a Christian while being a correctional officer. The point I was attempting to make, and I embellished it, was simply that correctional officers bow down at the feet of another God, and that is the God of CDC. They are sworn to secrecy. They are sworn to a code of silence. And I was simply saying that they're more dedicated to themselves and to their own personal agenda than they are to God. And that's the point I was trying to make. I should have said it that way. You can be a Christian and be a guard. You can be a Christian and be a cop. There are many Christian police officers, Christian correctional guards around this country, etc. And I thank God for them. I pray for them and I pray with them. Might I remind you to tell your pastor about the Black Men Rising Second Chance campaign, which is a campaign in which I would like to meet every week with men who are black, who are brown, who are white, who have been in trouble and come out of prisons, and help with not only self-esteem, but help with connecting them to the community with jobs, give them an outlet, somewhere to talk about our PTSD, the humiliations that we get when we can't get a job and things of that nature. I'd like to meet once a week for an hour, sit down somebody's house, somebody's